Hey, good evening. Attorney Tim Anderson here, January 22nd. I know it's a little late, and usually I do these videos a little earlier in the day. I've had a fairly busy day myself, and I wanted to get to these points that I want to make today because they're time sensitive, and I haven't had the time to really talk about Lobby Day and some of the red flag laws that are some of the thoughts about the red flag bill that's gone through. So let's start breaking down first. So what was Lobby Day? How our system of government works is and we talk about lobbyists like they're kind of bad things or bad people, but essentially what a lobbyist is it's an individual who represents a very large group of people. For instance, let's talk about maybe like the NRA. The NRA has a large group of people, and there's usually like one lobbyist per se. And what that lobbyist does is they go to the elected representatives and they on behalf of their very large group, tell the people what they want their group to do. Now, when a lobbyist does this, the elected officials will eventually decide whether they're going to do what the lobbyist asks or don't do. And typically, how lobbyists get power and get access is that the people that they represent usually make pretty large campaign donations to the elected officials, and that's how they get access. And that's how the system works. And there's a lot of talk about maybe how we should change all that and everything, but essentially that's what lobbyists are. So on Monday, everybody who went up there, they were essentially lobbyists. Now, instead of representing a large group of people, they were actually just representing themselves. So it was hundreds, thousands of people that were there, and they were lobbying by saying, hey, we're concerned, we don't want you to do these things. They were making their points to their legislatures, and some of them got in, and most of you all stood outside and peacefully protested. So Lobby Day turned into really two things. Some people got in to see their representatives, and they lobbied and told them what they wanted and what they didn't want, and the others protested. They were the ones outside who didn't see that. Now, like I've been telling you all along, this Lobby Day, which was a very unique day, not historical the way it has been in the past. Lobby Day is and turned into a protest day, a day where a lot of people showed up to basically say, hey, we don't like what you're doing. And it was a peaceful protest, and that ended up being a very positive message that was sent to the entire world, and one that nobody could really say anything negative about. I mean, if you look at all of the mainstream media, there's really not much anybody has been able to say negative about how the protest went. However, you have the delegates now, and you have the senators, and they saw what happened. They saw how respectful all of the gun owners were, and they heard from many of them in their offices. But then the very next day, they start, gearing back up and doing their anti-Second Amendment agenda. And that's how the system works. You shouldn't feel at all betrayed by what happened on Monday or feel like it was a waste of time. It was an extremely important thing to do because it demonstrated to everybody that people can be there and they can peacefully protest. Where we've seen other protests happen where people have burned down buildings and lootings and all of that. This was a peaceful protest, and it was a beautiful and magnificent thing to look at through the way that a democracy form of government works. And I realize you might zing me for that. I get that we're a republic, but it is a democratic republic. But we have the ability, free speech, to go out there and say, hey, we don't like this. So don't feel in any way set back that Lobby Day was a failure. It was 100% a success. We couldn't, as two-way people, the two-way people that went could not have done a better job representing themselves. There's nothing that could have been done differently that would have changed the outcomes of how the laws are going to move forward. You went, you protested, it was peaceful, it was respectful, it was perfect. So for everybody who went, you should be thankful, and not thankful, you should be congratulated. And we, as a Second Amendment community, should be thankful for everybody who went there. So to that, okay, they're not listening. All right. Now, they don't listen to other lobbyists. Some lobbyist may go into their office and say, hey, my group wants you to do this, and they don't listen to them. That's just what happens. And, as the paid lobbyists work, if the delegate or the senator or the elected official doesn't do what they ask, then they take their money away and they give it to their opponent. And that's what we're going to do at the next election cycle. Instead of taking the money away, we're going to take their votes away. We're going to go and vote against them and campaign against them, and remember that they chose not to listen to us. That's how the system works. So very thankful how all that went down. All right, so don't be disappointed. Don't be frustrated. The Democrats clearly have an agenda that they are going to push. They do not seem to care about what the other side of the story is. We saw that yesterday with them dismissing a bunch of very common sense bills, like even the church bill where you can't right now legally have a firearm in a church that's in worship session. That's a crime under Virginia law. And although there's a attorney general opinion from Cuccinelli back in 2011, it's a stupid law. It's like, why is this a law saying what a church can do? So, delegate prepared a bill that said, hey, let's just get rid of this law. There's no reason we should tell churches what to do. If they want to ban guns, they can make that that's their deal. If they don't want to ban guns, they can make that their deal. But it shouldn't be the state saying what to do. Delegate proposes that. It gets shot down yesterday without any hearings. So what we're seeing is that the Democrats' idea of what they call common sense gun reform really is more of just agenda driven. And I think we probably all knew that was going to be happening. However, it's still important to email. It's still important to write to them, because I still believe that there are people that are that we can still reach and possibly change. And some of the bills have softened up. These are important things to keep doing. All right. Nothing has become law. So a lot of you have said, hey, how do we, how come nobody's filed lawsuits? Well, the reason for that is that the Senate passes bills and the House passes bills. And then around Valentine's Day, they swap those bills, and then they start reconciling the bills and then start pushing everything. And then when all that's reconciled, around the end of February, certainly by St. Patrick's Day, everything's going to be up to the governor, and then he's going to sign whatever bills that he agrees with into law. So it's going to require the House to pass it, the Senate to pass it, and then the governor has to sign it. And then when he signs it, that's when it becomes law, and then that's when it'll have the effective date. I'm going to be talking to you all very comprehensively. I'm going to be doing town hall meetings all throughout Virginia. So if you live somewhere and you have access to a stadium or like a gymnasium or something, not stadium, a gymnasium, and you can start coordinating things in late March and April, we're going to want to start communicating with you back and forth with me about getting places for me to go so that I can talk to you about what the laws mean, what you can do to comply, and what the implications will be if you don't. So those are going to be conversations to have in March. When will the legal challenges start? Well, typically you'll probably see some of the larger groups make some legal challenges pretty quickly after the governor signs bills. And then you're going to start seeing individual challenges happen as people get wrapped up in the system. And that's where a lot of the challenges are going to come from. So somebody who may have a high capacity magazine, say 12 rounds, and somehow they get wrapped up with the police and the police charge them with a crime for having a 12 round magazine, that's when, and they're going to be charged with a crime, you're going to see a lot of this stuff start working out its way through the criminal justice side of things. Those will be individual fights. Those are the fights that guys like me are going to take because I'm going to be representing you individually. The larger groups like the NRA and the other groups that, the Gun Owners of America, they'll probably file civil lawsuits, and those will probably happen sometime after the laws get signed by the governor. So you're going to see kind of this two different waves of people filing lawsuits. My lawsuits or my representations are going to come after the laws come into effect on July 1, when people start getting wrapped up in the system and we're defending them. And so that's kind of the explanation of how all that's going to work. Now, finally, red flag bill passed the Senate today. We knew it would. It's not, it's not a shocker that happened. If you don't really know what red flag law mean, I did a really good video about that. You can go to my YouTube channel and just go to Virginia Law Office and type in red flag or anything like that, and it'll pop up the video so you'll clearly understand what this law says and what the police can do. I'm not going to restate it here because it's very well done on the Virginia Law Office channel on YouTube. So check that out if you haven't seen that. And so that's kind of where we are today. Now, next couple of things. I want to say this, and I got to say this again, and I've said this multiple times. You cannot recall an elected official in Virginia by signing an online petition. You are not doing anybody any favors by forwarding online petitions on your Facebook pages to people. You're actually just wasting time. You're wasting everybody's time in doing that. So don't do that anymore, please. It's not beneficial. It's not helpful. If you're going to do a recall petition, a real recall petition, it has to be done in person with the person signing the petition under the penalties of perjury, ink on paper. That has to be signed and notarized. It has to be done that way. So definitely please understand that these online petitions are no good and they don't get any traction in any way. All right, so that's that. Hope you guys have a great evening. I'll touch base with y'all tomorrow. Thanks.